Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. Today's episode is being recorded on 5/4/2025. This is going to be another Q&A, folks. Thanks for the questions, and this is going to be a bit of a beefy one here. So before any of that starts, I now open this circle to true benevolence with no conflicting agendas of this moment in time. So, Joanna?
We are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for you, your friends, your family, your loved ones, to let healing energies in. Let them love you and nourish you and bring you to your highest good. We ask for benevolence now to come in with no conflicting agendas, so that we may have this communication and this forum with a great understanding. And we ask for malevolent and mischievous beings to be swept away now, so that we can have this conversation in peace. And with that, and with always great blessings we send your way, we say so be it.
And so be it. Okay, here is the affirmation and blessing here. Rule with fire, but let the ice form. Rule from the mountaintop, but walk the earth. Ground, but seek the clouds. Rains shall fall to put out your eternal flame, but flow like lava to the sea. Form an island, form a nation, form peace, fire, and rain. Channeling of Pele. So, and just read this part on the second part of it right there.
Okay, this was something talking about Moroni of the Mormon people and meeting him in person and continuing communication.
Yes, it came from a letter that I'm not going to repeat, and I don't have a copy of. I only wrote this answer down, or did this channel at the time that I read this. It was very lengthy. I wouldn't have put it in here anyway. So it says, all right, and it was basically talking about like you said, continuing communicating, but in person. We'll talk about in-person meetings with him and all of that. It was that basic premise. So, Moroni here. We seek union of words with you from the carven people of the what you call the Pleiadi. We sought Joseph Smith to spread our word, but now the situation has changed where we are open to more speech. But I must ask that you understand that in-person contact cannot happen in the traditional methods, meaning face-to-face is impossible for now because of our vast frequency differentials. I hope you understand, but I can speak through people you meet. Not just this one here. You will see me in the eyes of the Mormons you meet, as will he here. This is all I have to say for now, anyhow. Goodbye and peace be with you. Channeling of Moroni. So we'll go on to the next one.
Can the Galactics use AI-generated algorithms as a treaty workaround to show themselves within the images of animations generated?
All right, this is actually very interesting. So yes, we can, and we do often. Take, for example, the millions and millions of images needed to generate a single composite image. Then add a little direction for us, and both psionically and technologically. Then voila, us. Now, this is not to say that it does it every single time, mind you, but at times we can and will communicate this way. So do other galactics, and even spirit will do it. All of the layers can, unfortunately. So bless, as well as be very careful with AI-generated software, as well as the intentions put into the statements made while writing the descriptions. Also, just putting 3 dots in a row will also bear greater fruit when it comes to us being able to manipulate the AI-generated algorithms, and that is from Elena. So, go on to the next one.
Why do ghosts act so odd and stupid at times, even resorting to hiding inside storage bins in my workshop, and even believing that I have trapped them like in Ghostbusters?
Yeah, this got ridiculous after a while, so I had to make a question about this. This got really stupid, and I'll explain after I read the channeling here. Um, Bessa here to briefly answer this. It is simple, really. Their energy is not, and I mean not, the same as when they left. They are quite literally a ghost of their former self, and as such, sometimes only the worry and pain of death lingers. Take, for example, someone dies from an assailant popping out of a dark alley with a knife. That soul forever wants to run and hide. Religious indoctrination aside, meaning fear of hell, this final moment can linger. Some had such horrific deaths that their consciousness even forgets that moment altogether. Though ghosts do for most ghosts do form mostly from injustices, lies, and unfinished business, etc. A lingering shadow still can loom. As for why they hide in your workshop, your beacon shines so brightly that even they take notice. Get it? And this was really odd. And this would also happen, especially around the holidays. I noticed where there were these large bins in the workshop that held all the Christmas decorations and everything, really big bins that we had when we were back on Hartley. And this happened there too, where we would pull the lid off and energy would rush out of there. I mean, that's true of, like, say, our pieces doing positive changes, and any object that has really soaked up and saturated with energy, negative or positive or powerful, or having an instigator object that maybe is cursed or haunted in some form or fashion, or an entanglement to an object. This was unique, though. I would literally open the bin and literally find a ghost hiding inside the bin, and then they would blame me for not keeping them hidden. I'm like, what are you running from? And I get the soul trap stuff and everything that we've talked about, but this was different. Even this was like they were doing it just to do it. And aside from soul trap, aside from Lancaneer, like caravan patrols, all for the soul arc stuff, any of that conversation aside, or some assailant of any kind, or demonic of any sort. This was getting to the point where they would, like, form a nest, like, in the bins. It's almost like an animal or a feral being forming a nest, or like insects would form a hive kind of thing. And this got to such an extent that, we had to remove these bins and put them over in a storage unit. And I put our pieces over there as well, so I could have a place to where the energy could build over there as well, because it was getting a little overwhelming. So, like I did in Prescott, I told everybody about that time. But this was getting to such an extent that it had to be done. I put it over there, and was still finding them in there, and they were hating me, going, "I hate you. Why did you do this to us?" It's like, what are you doing this to me for? And it's just been this back and forth between me and ghosts, that they won't stop doing it. She's basically saying it's because of the beacon, the light I put out, and also not just the channelings, but with the pieces, but also with what I do and all that. I understand that part, but this was just a strange feral behavior that was popping up. That in the past, I never saw it completed. Some of it happened on Hartley. I mean, we would find somebody in stuff every now and again. It was very, very uncommon and very rare. This has gotten to the point where it's just, like I said, like a nesting site, like not at our house, but this behavior has popped up across the board from ghosts, and it's been a complete mystery as to why this has popped up. We figured it was a sonic dampening because there was a ghost that we talked to a while back that he was the guy that drove off the edge of the pier in here in Virginia Beach. He was completely different. He was like a regular person, believe it or not. He kept saying the world was getting dumber around him. His family wouldn't hear him. They would think he was a conspiracy theorist, all this other stuff. And he lost businesses, lost good fortune, like he was cursed. And then everything just melted away, and he felt he had no other recourse but then to do what he did. So, yeah, it was really odd how that chain of events has come about. So I'll just leave it at this. If you guys want to see more on that subject, like those weird paranormal behaviors, let me know.
What is synchronicity, and can it be used by both sides?
Yeah, this is very interesting, as we've spoken about synchronistic events before, but this one I actually like to this answer. Elena here, everyone, with a simple answer. There is no such thing as synchronicity. Everything is connection, both good and bad. Now, can military ETs and trained AI algorithms make things and events seem like they are synchronistic? Yes, indeed they can. But true connection does not, and I repeat, not ever need to be validated and synchronized. You just feel, know, and understand. If it is connection, you feel its truest intentions, good or bad. Songs on the radio, Facebook ads, and timestamps on a clock are not constructed with connections to spirit, but strings of messages are. Very much like if I were to send a song as a message, but the connection is the feeling behind what the song means. If there is no feeling, there is no connection. Understand? And yeah, I've run into this where, and this goes into the whole 1111 territory, where people are going, well, this got validated with 1111. And I said, what was validated? They felt it was whatever they happened to be thinking about, but that's that connective AI that we've mentioned, the Facebook one and all that is connecting, trying to adhere itself to the synchronicity, like the guy that was dreaming of the sex toy model, or the seeing it on Facebook, or people on Facebook talking about whatever they're thinking is displayed in ads and all this other stuff. You know the drill in that. But this is not that. Like if you see the 1111s, 2222s, 3333s, 444s, those are most of the time these algorithms adhering to try to adhere to a certain synchronicity or just coming up. Like there was one person I even questioned once. And we said this also in the show, the lifting episode, Messages for One or Messages for All. You can go back and review it there too. But I will say only this, like this person was saying, well, I got an 1111. What was it validating? What were you feeling was validating? No, but it was an 1111. That's got to be something, right? And this is when it's not adhering to anything, then that should be a clue, Sherlock, that it's not anything. But some people OCD wise get really locked into this. And now if you feel there is something true going on, absolutely go for that. But then just know this AI is still trying to attach to an actual synchronistic thing. Just like a good friend of mine said the way his father would come through is that he would see John Deere tractors and things like that in a particular set of situations. I won't mention personal situations, but just know he knew spirit-wise this was his father. And even if they come through on Ghost Box, even if they come through mainly without all that stuff, but you just know that it's them. And then you'll have the one thing, try to adhere to it. See, it's an 1111 though. You see what I'm trying to say? It still is something trying to super glue itself to something it doesn't belong on. Now, what you saying about songs, and what also sometimes stamps, they will use sometimes, but again, you know the feeling first behind it. Just like they like to use 420 on me sometimes, basically, meaning high energy. They base it off of a Dorothy song, "You're Pretty When You're High, Boy," is what they like to say, meaning when I'm laughing, when I'm doing stuff. They will do that, but it is incredibly rare, and it's just real quick. So you know when it is them and when it is not them. So I'm just going to move on now. So, all right.
Is there something I need to do in particular or to be able to raise my frequencies enough to be able to access and experience all the different stuff in the universe and in the ET and sci-fi and advanced universe and physics and psionic realm?
Okay. All right. Hello. Elena here to answer this question. They like to wink a lot. Okay. All you need to do is walk the path of calm, stay grounded, and above all else, be yourself, meaning do not see others' opinions as slights against you. This can be self-damning, and self-damning hurts your frequency. Get it, dear? Elena. All right. We'll go on to the next one since this is a fairly lengthy one.
So I'm assuming, again, this is a question for Michael Jackson.
Yes, it is.
Because it says, "Greetings, Michael. Please tell us about the ladies in your life. Reveal as much or as little as you want to. First, the first lady the questioner is asking about is his mom, Catherine."
Okay. Yeah, this was a extremely lengthy answer here. So when you leave it open like that, they tend to go on. So this was interesting. Okay, where do I start? Catherine, my mother, knew very little about what had happened to me or didn't want to know. I was not too certain as to how much was known to her in the beginning, but as time passed, I began to realize that she was very heavily involved in the selection process, meaning who was to be in my life. They say I had children with Debbie Rowe, but in fact, I could not, given the fact that I was castrated. This may confuse others who have studied my life, but the fact of the matter is that they did not want me to have children because of the fact that would have created way too many variables to control. Lisa Marie Presley was also guided to be near me, meaning a handler. Her father was also handled but could not be controlled much. His life ended in humiliation and torment. Usually, the cabal families, as they are called by most people, love to intermingle genetics and create genetic lines to control. They call this process eugenics, but with me, they didn't want me to have children with Lisa or any other house, of which they love to combine the bloodlines. Sometimes this happens by mistake, like with the Harkonnen and Atreides families in Dune Prophecy or on Dune Prophecy. When the type of mix, this type of mix happens, uncontrollable variables are created. This means that castration to them is ultimately necessary, at least to some families. Others did not want this to happen, but the deed was done. Diana Ross was more of a handler, but in a more loose sense. But with Brooke Shields, I handled her. I hate mentioning this part, but I too was controlled to do despicable things to people, children too. Frown emoji. A regret I still share in experience form. That is, as an oversoul, it is but one experience, negative or positive, in a sea of experiences. Brooke went on to be free of me, but not free of Hollywood. She went on to become one of P. Diddy's party observers, but hardly ever there around the festivities. They all hated me. It is because I hated them enough to put a target on their back. A job I still share, but from an untouchable place in spirit, a place of true peace. I hope this answers your question, friend. Michael Jackson. Okay. It's still Michael Jackson questions here. So,
Yeah. Why and how did you contract vitiligo?
okay. Let's see. I was a contract of, that's the illness he had
I think it's vitiligo.
vitiligo, yeah.
Read it too quick.
Yeah. That's the illness he had with the pat, like his face got all patchwork looking like cow patch, and took the pigment out of his face. So, I was a proud black man until they struck me with the skin disease, vitiligo. This they thought was a fitting punishment for pride and empowerment of self-worth. They used frequency and magic to do it to me and my body. I hated this and hated my father. True spirit is cleansing. My face is my own once more. Michael Jackson, meaning he looks like he did in Thriller. And further back, he looks like he's supposed to, like you'd expect. He says, forget how he was when he was more controlled, when he'd wear a mask and his nose was gone and all this. He goes, that wasn't the true person completely. That's why people think he thought he was replaced. It was just more mind control and trauma, is what that was. That's what he really wanted relayed to people. So next one.
Okay. Thank you. Rumors. Staples Center, were you in the casket on stage or in the audience in disguise? Are you in the Forest Lawn Mausoleum? Do they still use your bones for rituals?
Okay. This also went on a little bit here. Rumor has it that Diddy diddled, but he is not the last to fall to the will of old gods and their followers. I was in neither the casket nor in the audience in disguise. I stood and watched my own funeral in a daze and in disbelief. My remains are indeed interred in Forest Lawn Mausoleum, and yes, they still use my bones for rituals. Just like with any religion, especially satanic and dark pagan type religions, do with the bones of either a favored servant slash familiar or with a prophet. But the catch here is that I was neither. One more rumor for you both. Did you know that a lot of this is also cover for something much more simple, yet far more sinister in nature? Rumor has it that most of the rituals are more akin to WWE or fake entertainment and for fake reality TV entertainment programming to hide a simple but horrible truth. And the truth is, kids get hurt, gods get worshipped, but most of all, a movie has now become reality. A narrative created to distract the public pretty much overnight became ancient and true, just like when they conjured demons within a horror movie script and when the real thing comes out to play. Three-letter agencies, along with drugs, bad acting, and old gods, are ultimately to blame. Got it? This is the truth that I knew and died for. From Michael Jackson. What he's trying to say is they tried to create a narrative, it went out of control and became the real thing, and linked to a lot of garbage from ancient times and antiquity, is what he was trying to say. And it just kept getting self-farmed over and over again. And the press does this and people eat it up, but he says there's a lot of truth in it as well, is what he was trying to say. So we'll go on to the next one.
And the person says, we might as well tackle this. Your involvement with PepsiCo and that awful accident, was that a setup? Question mark. Pain medication? Question mark.
Yes, that's when he got burned that time, when filming, doing the music video and all, and the commercial and all that. Yeah. So that was a horrible thing that took place there, and that messed him up big time. That made it worse. So this is what he had to say, and then he had me look up the medications and stuff. So I'm going to read this whole thing. This is another slightly medium-sized answer. So, yes, this was indeed a setup, but the crew mostly did not know about it. They set up the set as normal, but either forgot key safety checks and or were told to forget key safety checks. As for the pain medication, this was a way to get me addicted to them as yet another form of targeting. The fire was a warning. Play with fire, boy, and you will get burned. But the pills were yet another way in. And then he interrupted briefly to have me look this up. So, after a fire incident while filming a commercial in 1984, Michael Jackson was reportedly prescribed pain medications and developed a dependency, particularly on propofol. He also used other drugs, including mepridine, Demerol, midazolam, Versed, and
Versed.
Okay, and a combination of sedatives like Valium, diazepam, and Ativan or lorazepam. Lorazepam. Okay. Lidocaine was also used in conjunction with propofol for pain management. And then he went on to add to this. He said, this list is 100% completely accurate to what they got me addicted to after the fire accident. This is ultimately how they get us all. Elvis's overdose included in this equation. Michael Jackson. So, next.
Now the question, I guess, related to Michael Jackson is a question about Disney. What was the involvement with them? Why did you change your face to resemble Peter Pan?
This one, yeah. This was interesting. So sad but interesting. So this is a bit of a loaded answer. What involvement I had was, as a human being, was more of a blur. They turned me into a child. They turned me into a monster. I became, through mind control as well as undealt with childhood trauma and traumas, a child in mind and Peter Pan in face. I used this against them by placing Neverland Ranch right above their tunnels of which stretch right beneath Disney. It's a small world after all, is it not? Rumor has it that kids go missing in that ride the most. My involvement with them was paved with contracts, commercials, 3-letter deals, and military experiments. I can say no more, but for now, let's just say that this is all connected to Hollywood. Club 33, satanic rituals, and with me in the middle of self-harm and oppressive truths. Michael Jackson. All right, next. Oh, I'll just go ahead and read this up. Thank you, Michael. We will talk soon. Love you. And then he basically came in and said, love to you both as well for this opportunity to give back what I was not given. Kiss emoji, wink, thumbs up emoji, Michael Jackson. So that's how he ended that particular session. Next.
Okay. Why is Gene Hackman telling mediums that he wasn't murdered over the book he was writing about the dark side of Hollywood?
Yeah, this is very, very interesting. Let's hit the easy button. It either is A, not him, or B, glamour magic. But also you have possible option C, timeline jump, but it is usually the first two options. By Isaac. In this, what he was saying is like what Houdini was saying, where you have glamour magic in the way of mediums, seeing different outcomes. The Summer Wells case, that girl that was murdered. Many people keep going back to this and seeing different outcomes happening when they look back. Some collate. When I looked in this, I was also compared to another one that had the same way. But people keep seeing different outcomes of things. This is what Houdini was saying when we channeled him: glamour magic. So and also B2K and all this other garbage that's going on. But he was killed for his tell-all book, from what I came to find out. And there are other channels of his that I have done for future Q&As that will go more in depth in that. But that's essentially what this current message was. So next one.
Okay. I did want to share that in my spiritual beliefs, I believe that there's not a higher force than them. They may be an ET God with certain spiritual abilities might be able to achieve a higher level than them. I did also want to ask if you currently know any ETs who are currently on Earth in the form of humans or currently living here as a part of our society. By this, I mean an ET that might be living on Earth and might have social media and a phone number, etc. I'm just curious about that. If you know of any, let's see. And then it says, the person says, I don't actually know of any, or not aware of any that we interact with knowingly out in the open.
No. This was actually supposed to be my red right here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, this is the answer part. I don't actually know of any or am aware of any that we interact with knowingly out in the open, but communication-wise, yes. And then I said, I do feel there are some in, oh, yeah, this is another part of the question. That's why I said, don't break these up, folks, as it gets confusing as we read this. So I do feel there are some in our area out in the open, though. And this was another part to this. Okay. This is, I'll just go ahead and read this one, the rest of this one then. I'm hoping my neighbor I met will be one we could chat about. Okay, we could chat about it sometime. And then there's the werewolf minotaur soldier I met at the Halloween convention and possible neighbors around me. This person sent me a picture of a ET that was wearing a mask, like how people we saw in Salem. This was actually an interesting case. I'm hoping this gets touched on some more ETs in public. And you can go ahead and read this part here, up here. Yeah.
So this particular person is saying that they think they may have a few ETs around them that are living here. Only one, I'm sure, is the one that was wearing the Halloween costume. Let's see. I just hope that he doesn't cut communication with me, because I know he's an ET, like the ETs in the movie where they're ET and they leave back to their planet and never talk to you again. To be honest, I insist that the running away needs to stop happening from the end of the ETs, and there needs to be more disclosure and transparency confidence and unity from their end. Just wanted to share that with you.
I said I agreed with them 110%, and I still do. The people need to co-create them, not always running away. Even though that does buck the ICC system that's out there, I would say put it also out there that they don't feel they have a need to do it anymore as well. Buck the system that way. So we'll go into the rest before the bigger answer showed up here. It says maybe next time we can chat with Isaac and I can ask if there's something that can be done to help him and other ETs be able to do that more. So let me see here. Isaac here. Yes, there is more that can be done in this area of study, so to speak. Hee hee, wink. In order to disrupt ICC rules and regulations, one must always point out of the aliens when seen, and not loudly either. Do not shout it from the rooftops, but instead think in your head or verbally state that I know you're an alien. This makes it so when they walk away, this disrupts the ICC's bottom line, in turn messing with the Galactic Federation or the GF's bottom line. Do this always good, bad, or indifferent ET types included. This way, the system changes. Get it? No more angels unaware rule. Wink. Bye, Isaac. Wink. But in this, he was basically doing the wink wink in this to basically go, get it? Meaning that there's also there's alternatives to doing it this way. Yes, this might work, but what he's saying, read between the lines, like he's pulling a Groot, like saying, I am Groot. Yes, I understand that. I showed this on a EVP he did the other night on Phantom Gigabytes Ghost Bites on Poltercast 3 as well. When he does this crap, when he does the double wink like this usually means and signifies what I said before. Put it out there to get it to stop. In all respects, it's co-create the entire thing out of existence that way, is what he was actually saying. And so we'll move on from there.
Is there really a brothel planet that actually exists outside the known earthly and galactic acasics? Or was that just another fake thing shown to be by the brat, the blonde-haired idiot, or the witch?
Yes, and I'm not basically going to repeat again who those three are. People just have to look at GIC .show with all the different programs that are on there to be able to show who these people actually are. And we went into it in great detail over there. So I'm not reinventing the wheel. And it's not smart to actually say their real names anyway. So, but it's not that if you don't put the intentions out there, sometimes the naming doesn't work. But in some instances, it does. Like if you put true intentions towards a name, people get so scared that something's going to show up and ends up doing it because they're co-creating the fact that it's there. It's intentions. The name doesn't always do it. With those three, yeah, there is something that actually does happen when I say their actual names. So I just wanted to put that out there, that they seem to be almost the exception to the previous rule I just stated. So yes and no. Isaac here to say that nothing, and I mean nothing, is outside of source energy. Let's just state that for the record. Lastly, there are several brothel-like planets within and outside of Galactic Federation territories, like Vegas, but let's just say more accommodating when it comes to getting what you want. Not that I would know or anything, cough, cough. Wink. Lonulos has Nuver as well, but as I have said, cough, cough, enough said. Wink. Next question, please, dumbass. What the whole controversy behind the whole brothel planet is there was an insider out there. This is where the origin of the story came from. There's actually more of a legitimate reason I put this in there. There was the reason he was saying like outside of the Kejik is because they said years ago there was another insider that said there was a brothel planet outside of the Galactica Kejiks and Earthly Kejiks, or anything that true benevolent source creators saw to make it so people had privacy. That actually doesn't exist because source energy is in anything. That said, what I was actually picking up on at the time when I was looking into this is there's several out there in both Galactic Federation and outside outer outlying world territories like you see in Star Trek where there's non-aligned worlds. Same thing with Firefly. There's outer worlds and then there's the Alliance, but with Star Trek it's more accurate where there's some that aren't Federation oriented. That's more accurate to the truth there. So, but to say there's something outside of the Akijik, absolutely not. So everything is source energy, regardless, good, bad, ugly, and all between. It's all source energy, creator energy. So next one.
Is the great Pope Pepe Orsini an immortal of history? And is the Orsini family like a cabal offshoot?
Yes, this was actually very cool. We did, well, you would have seen the show that we did on it by now, but this question came up at the time we were doing that show. So yes to both. Wink Isaac here to tell you that the Grey Pope, Pepe Orsini, is indeed like what you both have channeled, but with a twist. So are more of his family lineage. Similarly to the New Amsterdam series, whereas the main character can still sire children, even though he is an immortal, and not like the Highlander, whereas both Connor and Duncan cannot. He has served and will continue to serve as the Grey Pope, who represents the true Catholic Church. From antiquity, Father Gabriel Mort is not pleased by this. I will pass you over, haha, to you now, Chris. Let's see, pass him over to you now, Chris, just a sec. And then Father Gabriel Mort, actually added to this. I thought this was interesting. Yes, Christopher, good to see you again, friend. We track, we watch, and we oppose, and have opposed this family in history. They are the old church, but the one from the Inquisition. He was there as both an advisor and as an executioner. Both were and are one and the same, because he sent multiple lines, not just individual people, to their deaths. The term monster does not even seem to fit his crimes. It defames actual monsters. Ha! This is all for now, my old friend. Wink, blessings upon you. P.S. The Order of Jesus is really the equivalent to the Sith on Star Wars, and ours, the Society of St. Paul, would be the equivalent to the Jedi Order, minus the seclusion, of course. Wink, bye for now. And he winks and sticks his tongue out, and that's what he's known for. And that was Father Gabriel Mort and Isaac in the same channel. You may have heard this one being read off in that particular show, but it was also meant for a Q&A. So if you have not seen that one, link below in the description. So, next.
As a result of chemtrail spraying, the results are in analysis: aluminum, barium, beryllium, chromium, copper, lead, lithium, magnesium, nickel, strontium, titanium, zinc, vanadium. Also, they are releasing weaponized mosquitoes for vaccinations. Rothschilds and Rockefellers behind this, as well as Bill Gates, China, lurking in the background in California, pretending to look for gold through aircraft from local pilots. Is this really going on, or is this a narrative?
Yeah, right. This was actually interesting. Isaac here to say a big over-resounding yes, that this is indeed happening. Since there were so-called stragglers when it came to the vaccines, the powers that be, so to speak, put the nanos in the chemtrails, chem clouds, and the infamous fog. They still do this, even now as I'm speaking to you all at the time of this channeling. Healthy eating, so to speak, will help. An alkaline body does help, but noticing helps the very best, because it then can be undone altogether. Forget what you've heard to just ignore it, or to just move on. Do neither. Be vigilant, but above all, be smart. And that wasn't quote, sir. Above all, be smart, because it was in big letters, folks. And do not, and I repeat, do not give into their gaslighting. This is the most important thing you must do. Thank you and good night. Wink. It is a performance after all, but it is also lethal. Most what people refer to as false flags truly are lethal. Goodbye for now. Wink Isaac, waving emoji and blows kiss emoji. I don't know why he labels the damn emojis, but okay, it's getting a little old. But that's from Isaac. Okay, next.
In the GIC episode and compilation, The Guardianship and the Void Part 1, why did the guardianship refer to the blonde hair idiot as Dear Blank? This was within the old lifting material. The Lifting's Guide to Galactic History, Episode 1, The Guardianship. Just curious.
Okay, this I like when this happened because they referred to the blonde-haired idiot's actual name, the one that he gave me when I was a child and when I was a teenager. So people that have listened to us forever will know exactly who I am referring to. So when I say blonde-haired idiot, like I said, making humorous nicknames, I'll probably have to shorten that at some point, but and come up with something. If anybody has something better, let me know. But something that matches the witch and the brat. But here we go. This is from the Guardianship in the Void. We referred to him as Dear because he was around you. We knew of his treachery. This was decided, but sometimes in order to catch a thief, one must act as though the thief in the night was supposed to be there. All, and we mean all guides do this when a more potent or more powerful bad guy is present. Not to us, but to Chris and Joanna here. He eventually was found out. Also, Chris and Joanna had not yet discovered his treachery. By this, we mean a discernment lesson was indeed in play by those you call true benevolent spirit. We can say no more to you until more on this subject is learned. Peace and balance to all. Smiling emoji, the guardianship and the void, or guardianship of the void. That's the first that they put in one of these Q&As too. Okay, back to the creepy font there. Okay.
Okay. So yesterday something popped into my head and popped into my head. I had an image of Pennywise and Venom holding a Christian cross and using it to fight evil and cast out demons from possessed people. And then something told me that there are many benevolent and friendly versions of malevolent entities out there who are out there to do good. And then I decided to create a picture with ChatGPT about my thoughts, and I got an image of a friendly Pennywise and a friendly Venom casting out demons and doing an exorcism and fighting an evil Pennywise and Venom. Again, something told me that there are many friendly, benevolent versions of some of the evil ETs out there. Just wanted to share this with you.
All right. Yeah, I thought this was actually interesting. I'm not going to put the pictures in. I don't want anything coming through those, but yeah, are there good and evil versions of things out there? Yeah, okay. Things that may seem evil or seem dark, but in fact they're good, and vice versa. There was even a game I played years ago called The Bard's Tale, where the ending, the whole damn thing was your enemy was this like gorgeous big boobed blonde, and the good guy that was helping you was the kind of like an uglier, chubbier guy, at the end. Kind of like this weird monk, and he was actually the one trying to help you the entire time. And it was the gorgeous one that was actually the evil demon that was in it. So sometimes evil comes in good looking packages. So let's just put it that way. I'll read what Orlog said here. It was Orlog here. Yes, there are indeed good versions of dark entities, but those are simply lookalikes, whereas some beings are similar in look, but in a similar, if not the very same genomic sequence was used to create said entities that were bad. Some revolted and became a force for good, some did not. Do you understand? Warlock. And yes, this also goes back to like Anunnaki forms and gray forms even out there. There's good, bad, and ugly. All in between, you have the Orion Greys, and you have some other ones that are other distinct ones. Not the Ebens. I'm not referring to them, but there are some like the Nictic and other ones out there that are actually decent. But what he was saying was some were created by the bad guys, and they were made in their image, and they were good. Just like the insectoids tried to make copies of themselves here on Earth and end up creating praying mantises that were animals. They're not bad. They can be assholes from time to time, but they're not bad. But also with what he was saying here, there's also like say Pharaoh Akhenaten. He was Orion. Some people have equated him to one of the Tuathan or Elven engineers that occupied the pyramid at the time to augment it into a hydrogen collector. You've heard us talk about that before in a previous Q&A. Some people believe Akhenaten was this. No, he was an Orion that got people to try to worship the Atmosphere. The Atmosphere was essentially Enlil and some of his cronies. So I came to find out, but it was also Osiris was also him. You know the whole story behind this. Eventually, Akhenaten's one god premise. Caesar stole it out of the Library of Alexandria, burned that, took it back to Rome, and you know what happened after that. Christianity. But with this, there are also other long-headed people that were completely nice that got the axe by regular humans. Also, the ones that were the engineers that tried to augment the pyramid. They weren't bad. The humans at the time were afraid of them and they killed them. Just like around Stonehenge, they found a long-headed skull person with a big axe wound in the back of their head. Some of those, some of the good variations and good Anunnaki variations and such got nailed for what their bad counterparts did. So just like in Irish history, they'd driven the elves out of Ireland. The Irish said they drove them out. No, they went back to Tir na Og after their war with the Fomorian wizards at the time. That's what Tolkien wrote about in Lord of the Rings. So you have good and bad that look similar to one another. This is what he was trying to essentially say. So you have to just kind of discern what feels right and what doesn't at that point. Just like we don't look alike, but we're all human. Some of us are good, some of us are not. It's the same difference.
This question is, why do the junk or garbage ETs not know how a toilet is used? And they are not wired or have plumbing the same way as us. You would think that they would know by studying us for so long.
This is interesting because this goes along with the episode we did with Audrey Walters from the Disclosure Now movement. So I actually find this very, very interesting. Just to recap before I read this, there were some ETs that were mentioned that basically hung toilet seats on their walls and stuff like that. And this is basically Isaac was saying these guys are weirdos, and he said and also Stephen in that episode was basically saying why, that sort of thing. They're weird. They literally would have toilet seats hanging on the wall, stuff the crap that they would steal from us, and they would just have garbage all around, and they think they're saying a pile of crap, and they think it's great. Like a pack rat, pretty much. So you can go back to that episode to review that. But okay. There we go. Ha ha. Wink. Isaac here to say that they do know how a toilet is used, but like the Japanese and subsequently the Untumbin people do, they shit in a hole in the ground. Ha. Wink. Now, it is a complete mystery as to why they hang toilet seats on their ship bridge walls for all to see, in both on-screen communications as well as meetings. Trade, piracy, and all-around drug dealing, but never soul trading. They have standards, Crappy wall choices included. Ha, he, wink Isaac. Or wink, next question, please, dumbass, wink Isaac. When he's basically winking all these times, what he's actually doing is basically saying, hint, hint, get my meaning in between the lines. They have crappy standards, all of this. He actually added to this by P.S. A new nickname for these guys. Wink, the garbage pail kids. Ha ha, he, wink, bye. That's the wink. And he's actually doing this repeatedly because there actually was a toy series back in the 80s and also trading card series called the Garbage Pail Kids. You can look this up. Essentially, to put in short, you just saw these weird depictions of kids that around garbage and depicted with garbage and all this. So the weird collection that took off in a cult following, and it's worth a shitload of money right now. With if you're a collector, but that's what he's basically saying. They were collectors. People collect the Garbage Pail Kids. He's basically saying these guys are collectors, and you just like pack rats, and basically things they think are worth money, which some things are worth trade resources and money out there that we could give two shits about, literally in this case. So that's what that's from. So we can move on.
What was the large creature that my mother saw fly above the house that she felt is an pterodactyl? Did it escape from a nearby base or did it momentarily time slip?
Okay, this was actually interesting. This broke out into an actual conversation with an elemental here. Isaac here to say that this creature was a form of an elemental. It was not, and I repeat, not a dinosaur. This type of elemental is one that you encountered back in California in 2016, whereas they asked you to not use the ghost box in the local park. You and friends were walking in. That is all for now. Ha, wink. Oh, here he is. And then Isaac departs briefly. Okay. Warhagen is my name. You and I must come to a resolution regarding what you bring onto and off of this property. Your red earth brought me with it from Arizona, and I have been stuck here with you in Virginia Beach ever since. And I said, Warhagen, I'm not buying that story. You can go anywhere you like. Just don't harass us. I got permission to use the dirt. From who? And he says, forest people, elementals. He goes, well, so be it then. Bye, bye. And then he departs. And then Isaac goes, hey. And I said, yes, Isaac. He is gone now. He and others like him reside in Arizona and California within a pocket dimension located between the two states. This is why they have been spotted since the times of the Old West. There is a more feral variety as well, but not many of them still exist to this day. Get it? And I said, got it. Good. Bye for now. Bye. Hissing emoji. Isaac departs, and that's that. Okay, I will describe the context for this. When we were around Sedona, we would gather, of course, the red dirt like other people do, and we make orgone pieces with it. I still have quite a bit of it, along with dirt from Valley of Fire, Nevada. And what I do with it is I make pieces. That's how it gets the red pigmentation. And it's the thing, red iron oxide and red clay. It's the same thing, so I mix it together. This elemental came around quite some time ago and basically had a problem with this, mixing both energies together, but they're both from dried up seabeds. If you look at Valley of Fire, you can tell fish made the different alcoves. And there are fish entities that are around that area as well. And a lot of photographers use model shoots and stuff around there too. Same with Sedona and also the Garden of the Gods in Colorado. These were all former sites of an ocean. And I've not done anything with Garden of the Gods. I haven't been there in years. But it's the same thing, red iron oxide and red clay. And that's how it gets some of its red pigmentation is the iron oxide. Well, very powerful substance to put in things. People do this on a regular and constant basis. And this elemental has had a problem with it. And even when we were trying to get rid of wasps around our house, he had a problem with me doing that. And then started to make a bunch of them, like almost like he tried to make a plague level version of this. And that's when this argument broke out with this after my mother visually saw him looking like a pterodactyl. I always saw him like gnarled branches, but apparently that was a psionic trick on his part, or that was a psionic trick on that part. I feel it was the prior, but with this also. In California, when I was back there in 2016 in a park, there was a pterodactyl being that kind of came through a little bit, show they were there. I was going to use a ghost box back then, and they asked me not to. So that's where I encountered these. They just said, well, just call us pterodactyls because you don't have another word. Dimensional elemental is more of a more accurate. So we can move on now.
And so to continue this conversation, another question was asked. Could an elemental coming through a portal into our frequency eat an animal here in our frequency?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was actually interesting. Isaac here, yes, they actually can, but for very brief periods of time. And if that animal ate a toxin or poison, they too will get nailed by it. No different than if a rat ate rat poison, decon, and a hawk would eat the rat. What happens? Decon poisoning. The same goes for food toxins and food scraps. Done for now, dumbass. Wink. Bye, Ivic. So this is what he was saying is, yeah, they can get hurt by this. They can come in for brief periods, and they're usually visible. There was one also story that I saw an elemental in Arizona in Prescott Valley in Granville there when I was looking out the back door. And I saw this 3.5 foot, almost 4 foot high. Actually, it was about 3.5 feet high, black, like elemental form standing on the wall and looked like a bird. But I mean, it was literally 3.5 feet high. And I went to get a camera, but as I hit record, it flew away and transformed into a regular raven. There were ravens all over. Every now and again, Odin, the forest people, and then would use them to communicate. We even had one after a GIC show one time. There was one standing on the neighbor's house. And I whispered to myself, I said, if your Odin squawked 5 times, did it, then did it again 12, 20, 15, went random and did it every single time and whispered, knowing that that bird was not hearing me, that that was the actual being that was around me. This one was another elemental type like Warhagen. And I like, could you have more of a more definitive warrior named Warhagen, like that? But he said that's how we would pronounce his name. Sometimes elementals can be dickheads, I must say. And Warhagen has harassed quite a bit over some things from Arizona. He acts like he's trapped, but in all actuality, yes, can you trap beings within like a really intense orgone field or crystal or anything like that? Can you bind beings and such? And do bind beings sometimes attack because they want help from you? We've mentioned this on the lifting shows. Yes, all of the above. This guy just wants to complain. Just like there's some mer people that work and elementals and such that will, and fae and such that will complain about the garbage, but yet they don't see that they don't do anything to try to help sometimes with the matter. They just want to harass people over. And I'm not saying all of them. Some of them want to be dicks. Warhagen falls under this particular category. So, yeah, Puckwudgies will do this too. They act like they're king of the mountain. They'll come by. They'll actually kill animals, enter our frequency, kill a squirrel. We had that happen once. Bunny, we had that happen once here. They want to make a point. Something got killed out in the workshop, and it smelled like something dying for a little bit. We found a Puckwudgie that had gotten into the attic. They do this. What they'll do is they'll make little limbs that come down through the ceiling and harass you. They'll come up on you and try to tickle your privates or something. They're really disgusting. So I've run into all manner of these types of things, and elementals aren't always bad. They can be dicks. So next one.
Do the soul doctors use regular telepathy to communicate, or do they use tech, like psionic enhancers?
Let's see here. This had to do Stephen of the Velodian Stole Doctors, like we had on that one episode I mentioned. So, hi, yes, it is I, Stephen, to tell you that I did not use any performance-enhancing drugs, LOL, during our channeling last night. Ha! It was all me, baby, all me. Hee hee. Wink, or he didn't wink, he smiled. We all do it our way. Ha ha ha. Wink. Until next we meet, Christopher, hee hee, smiling emoji, Stephen of the Velodian Soul Doctors. Yeah, so he basically was basically saying he didn't use any performance enhancing drugs. It was all him. That means he has the ability to do it himself with his own energetic and psionic capabilities. Some will use technology like this crystal unicorn horn-like thing. Some of the reptilians and people underneath the ground do. V2K, of course, for military, and also some humans that can put a little crystal on their head and act like they're aliens and such to people sometimes too through V2K. Some ETs will use it to communicate across vast dimensional distances and space distances. Some are right here doing that. Some also have like a little, almost like an egg-shaped thing on their forehead that they're doing that with as well. I've seen all of the above. So yeah, this was actually quite interesting. Okay. Next.
Okay. Amethyst, they say this can reboot massive advancements in galactic tech, obviously extremely valuable to so many. They say it must be traded for. Okay, so why not walk into a crystal shop and do some trading? Aliens buy stuff all the time. So why not incredibly valuable crystal? They are not rare. They are not rare and pretty cheap. So what is the galactic waiting on?
Oh, the galaxy waiting on, yeah.
Yeah, what is the galaxy waiting on? Certain Lanulos, the Forest people, Chrome's people, or a whole host of others have amethyst, right? If not us, they can trade, I'm sure. I really don't understand the hang up on amethyst. People pick it up left and right off the hills all the time. It's abundance and sold everywhere.
Yeah, this was back when we were told amethyst was extremely rare and valuable. It only came from Earth, and that anybody that tried to get it to enhance their technology was actually shunned by the Galactic Federation and all this other stuff in the day, and the authorities in the day. And it sounded kind of hokey to me. I went with it a little bit, probably longer than I should have. So I'm grateful this question was finally asked here. So, Crum or Crerum as it's spelled, Crerum, but it's Crum. Crum here to answer this question. The rarity of it that you all were told about is simply not true. You are wise in your investigation and critical thinking skills, my friend. Ha! Amethyst can and does enhance engine efficiency, can block block fire at times, protect one's energy, and even help with dreams. But is it rare? No, I'm afraid not. What you gentlemen were told before was simply not true. It was beings wishing for you both to get off track. Now, is it dimensional in nature, the way you both were told? Yes, indeed it is. It is a bleed through from both other timelines as well as from other dimensions, just like with Shungite being the Earth Mother's antibodies against the black goo, where the Earth formed it to fight an invasive species. Amethyst is similar to Shungite, but far more abundant. Thank you, Wink Crerum. Well, also there was an example given with one of the newer Godzilla movies, whereas this Hydra came in, and Godzilla was said to be the immune system of the Titans, essentially, where you find them frozen and all this other stuff. Those were Titans. Essentially, think of him as like how Shungite was, and the invasive Hydra-looking thing was like the black goo. It was the basic premise, not necessarily the way you were seeing them. Essentially, Godzilla was created as basically something about the horrors of nuclear power because he had nuclear breath, but that's another story altogether. But the premise is one thing was created to fight another thing, and it was the opposing. Black goo was like and graphene oxide and such was like basically the retarded older cousin of Shungite. That came from one timeline, Shungite came from ours, and they clash and can cancel each other out. And essentially, Gravine was supposed to be part of the Shungite family. That's why I said retarded older cousin, because the other had to be formed because of. I just wanted to basically put that into context. So, next.
As the ascendant take position to become the supreme retards of Earth and find their seat amongst the bickering galactic pony house, I get the feeling that a lot of species on Earth, Odin's people, Chrome's people, the Forest people, Dogman world, Centauri world, Poseidon's people, and a whole lot of others, to be really honest, who would not see these ascendant offspring of Landfill, Inky's brother, to be the supreme rulers of Earth. So how could Earth possibly be a part of the GF when there are so many other worlds within it all with different leadership? Well, who do not support morons? Or does this mean Midgard is treated separately from Earth?
When he says landfill, he means Enlil, figuring that saying his name was going to summon him, so he just flipped the name around. So when you hear landfill, somebody was doing that. Okay. This was Chrome again. I see what you are truly saying, young man. How could this be? Well, I will tell you that Earth is one. Earth/Midgard, the Interverse/Lanulos, etc. all have vested interest in Earth reuniting with the rest of the galaxy. That said, the GF's policy of having one ruler and/or one council, one world, is a silly and a very unrealistic notion as far as Earth goes. However, having to change said rules a bit, tweaking them, as it were, is not a bad thought in and of itself. Layers upon layers. That is all for now. Blessings. We Chrome, excuse me. So, next one.
Up
here, right here.
Okay. Recently, there was a large quake in Cambodia. Some real strange clay bubbled up from cracks, and one crack ran alongside a totally buried building, exposing a roof. The building looked like ancient stone, Greek, Tartarian maybe. What was the nature of the quake? What is being exposed just under the ground in Cambodia?
Okay, this was actually interesting, kind of like almost like the anti-mud flood where it was exposing Tartaria kind of thing. To answer first, the true nature of the quake was us Titans. And secondly, that was being exposed, or what was being exposed is what was buried, meaning Tartarian and their allies. This is all for now, Chrome. Now, you also have the ancient empire, which some people confuse with the later Tartarian, but all of it can still be that, the Tartarian world unity that was pre-Atlantis, world empire that all had the same structures all around and the same measurements, megalithic yard, all of that. And then you have Tartaria, which is like essentially Xanadu and all of that as well later on in history. And that was broken up because it was a reemergence. But now it is all being re-recognized, especially anything was buried by mud, like the mud flood and everything. You're seeing it all being all coming out because Chrome and the rest of them wanted people to see those buildings that people that that were basically killed to bury history. And even in recent history, where some people are buried, eventually they're going to find that in later years. There was even a town in Washington State I saw that had been completely buried, and they left the people entombed. They couldn't get to them with excavation equipment, so that was just the burial site at that point. That one in England where it buried that whole town, same thing. This is what they do when they either want to kill a bunch of people, the same thing, or bury history. The same with Mount St. Helens with that Syrian group that was under Shasta there, Dark Elves. They took a toplet bomb, blew up part of the mountain, blew all that off, and basically set off that volcano. That was basically them waving their prick around, but you get the idea. So next.
We had the Khans speak of the Tartarian Empire in Asia Major during the times of Rome. I believe this makes sense. Tartary on old maps is the Mongolian/Russian area. But what of other Tartarian regions? We have seen their structures in the USA, Canada, Australia, all over Europe, and even Rome was mud flooded, and they had to do it a long time ago. The majority of these old buildings were taken down during the formation of modern USA and Australia, and there were tons of them. For example, the old Library of Toronto, the original White House, and the Crystal Palaces, also the Old World's Fair plaster buildings, which the big ones were definitely not plastered. Were these made prior, later? Did the natives in North America live alongside Tartarian states with massive buildings of stone and iron? Where do all of these structures fit into our timeline? It is now a joke that Freemasonry literally came about because these grand buildings were already dotting the globe, free for the taking.
Now you're also seeing a mix-up between like the old empires of the ancient world and then the Tartarian one that came up later, the worldwide empire, like I said before, and also Atlantis spreading out globally to teach all the younger races, kind of thing. You're seeing things from the time of the Great Seeding as well, from millions of years ago, but the buildings that were taken down, this was a timeline changing of history, and people always say, well, how would they have had time to do this? Well, they did, because they had a lot of time to do this, to rewrite time. You had time projects like the Montauk Project and all them going back and rewriting things in history, temporal factions doing this, take your pick. This is essentially what took place here. So this was actually a fairly long answer by Chrome. So, one, there was a worldwide empire of stone. All of your pyramidal and megalithic structures were part of said empire. This was millions of years ago, just post the times known to us as the Great Seeding. Approximately like 65 million years ago, like the movie. Essentially the same time frame, where multiple species seeded the earth with both their land masses and people, as well as separating Pangea into multiple parts, knitting together what you now know as the map. But do you now? As with Xanadu, the original history and map were realigned, allowing for a false set of details to take hold with the Great War of Timelines. Both the original Tartarian world unity as well as its reboot still exist within another frequency, just like how the future kind carved their temporal space out as Odin did for Asgard within the Interverse. And yes, the natives did live alongside other buildings and peoples. They even tried to form their very own government with them at one time, but the reptilian newly fledgling United States would not allow yet another temporal world unity out in the open on Midgard. And that was an actual quote he said by somebody. So it was forgotten to the ravages of a victor telling the history. Just like in the Middle East, whereas you see Arab sects destroying ancient temples like the Temple of Baal in Turkey, that and Baalbek, I believe. Some of Baalbek is still there, but Baal is not. That fate was almost slated for Göbekli Tepe, or not quotes, it was almost slated for Göbekli Tepe as well, but it was able to be preserved at the 11th hour, so to speak. Wink, that is all for now. Blessings, wink, Crumb. He was basically saying he and others helped do this. And okay. Atlantis, again, also spread out and created culture as well, like with Mesopotamia. All their former sites, they kind of just revived. They were originally technological cultures were living alongside more primitive ones. Then they went out and began to teach them. That's the whole thing with Atlantis. People only go back so far. To comprehend a time frame like the Great Seeding, that's 65 million years ago, the people are thinking just dinosaurs. Just like in the movie you saw of 65, you saw the meteorite rain down, or the asteroid raining down, and that actually happened, but it was more guided so they could create the Great Seeding. The Orions also took genetics from dinosaurs and stuff, and dragons and all that to make Draco and stuff later on as well. When they came into the temporal mix, they slid through different time frames, different universes, ended up in pasts, presents, futures, all of that crap. So now we will also. Oh, one more thing. Atlantis did try to conquer the globe with a black army. One time I wrote this into a game strip. I called it the Dark Army. But they went around to try to conquer the globe. They also tried to go after Lemuria. That was the war with Lemuria and Atlantis, creating the different temporal rifts, triangles, and time fractures all over the planet. People want to see any shows more on the Atlantean Lemurian conflict, let us know. So, next.
The Orpheons once said the recreating of the world depended upon human co-creation. That was many years ago for an ambiguous statement. How would our co-creation be affecting that?
The Orpheons were one of those races from a parallel universe that the Guardianship of the Void spoke about, guiding them into the void and then bringing them into our reality, because they had a specific talent that could move against the Orions and some other nasties in our universe. So, backstory on them a little bit on GIC, that show. Chrome here, this answer may take a turn from what you've heard once again. Their homeworld is wherever they choose to park their ass, But can human co-creation bring back a world or even a timeline, planet, or even a universe, omniverse, and or part of the super omniverse? Yes, it can. But is humanity the chosen race, the fifth race, like they say in Stargate SG-1, according to Stargate SG-1, or the ones who have the codexes that will upgrade the galaxy and all the races and species? Afraid not. Unfortunately, that too was a steaming pile of bullshit, horseshit, and all in between. That was Nazi talk for certain. There is and never has been a single race that will and or is destined to save the rest of creation. That is Aryan Brotherhood / Nazi superior / master race crapola. Wink, like the Masters of the Universe, but only not as cool. Wink. Be seeing you next question, Chris. Wink. Crumb. Now, what he meant by Masters of the Universe was everybody knows about He-Man. Blonde-haired, blue-eyed hero, muscular. It's Prince Adam, like Adam, Adamic, seeding. And actually transforms into He-Man. Get it? Pronouns? Okay. And She-Ra. Now, opposing Skeletor, the evil scourge of all of it, he was actually a being called Kalidor, a dark elf that actually got his face burned, turned into Skeletor. Won't go completely into that nerd lore, but at the same time, you'll never look at it, Masters of the Universe the same way, like Master Race, Masters of the Universe, we've talked about the blonde hair, blue eyed guys. She-Ra, turned it around and say Rashi or Rashield is actually that name corrupted after ancient Egypt and became the name Rothschild. So there's even an episode where She-Ra is actually trying to stop a giant clock from destroying a white city. White City is Washington, D.C. Clock is AI. She's also the sacred feminine image that you see like on the roof of the Capitol. Columbia, the goddess, that's also the witch, the one we talked about. But the whole sacred feminine religion came from the witch. I will say only once she was also known as Isis. So you get the Egyptian reference there. If you want to see more on some of that disclosure in the media of the Masters of the Universe, let me know. So, next one.
It is said that if any Asgardian sets foot amongst us, we would instantly be relieved of this existence and have a much needed retreat into our soul worlds. So how was the daughter of Odin skulling around in a parking garage, creeping in car windows looking for a snack? Wouldn't people just blow up? I also think it is funny that her eternal residence is now a dirty parking tower. Maybe she can lick an oil slick.
Yeah, making fun of the witch. This is that other person. I won't completely reinvent the wheel, but if you go back to the episodes of GIC, the Galactic Interversal Consortium episodes on GIC.show or www.galacticinterversalconsortium.com. Go to that website. You will subscribe to the $5 a month. You will actually see the episode that we referred to this little parking garage void photocopy that she was in. She was essentially sent to the void from where she had been standing in a parking garage. That's what he meant. If you want to see the whole thing, go to the Guardianship and the Void episodes that we did. We put it all in there. So I will actually answer this. All right. She is closer to your frequency than she appears, young man. Though the creepy, and I mean very creepy, daughter of Odin, this does not preclude the fact that she can exist in your world, meaning Midgard, because she has not had the vampire contagion. She has now had the vampire contagion for centuries now. Subsequently binding her to Midgard. The vampire virus actually does that. But the fact that she never left Midgard to begin with, even when the Great Frequency Shift and Turnabout took place, the Great Frequency Shift and Turnabout consisted of 4 things. 1, timeline splits. 2, pocket dimensions. 3, interverse. And 4, frequency protection such as suits, jewelry, and the like. Atlantis was one of those timeline splits, just like the Dragon Break of the Elder Scrolls lore, whereas the war between Atlantis and Lemuria caused a schism in time, one still not fully rectified or reconciled. Proof of this are all, and I mean all, of the triangles across the planet's surface. Bombs, temporarily based nuclear warheads did the damage. The very same sources that shared nuclear information with Atlantis shared it with Einstein and Oppenheimer. Ripples in time, transhumanism also stems from memories of Atlantis. Terminator is a prime example of this war with time itself. More on this subject later when he here learns more of it. Carry on, Wink Chrome. And the Terminator reference, I will be brief on this. This is where Atlantis got this transhumanistic tendency from an AI signal that came from the Orion Wars, which was during the time of the Ragnarok. Via the witch, some crystal skull variations. The Mitchell Hedges thing isn't an actual thing, by the way. The skulls coming together to save humanity, that crap. That was a tall tale. Then you had the scientists of Atlantis opening portals. They then be able to make their own homegrown version of transhumanism. And from that point, they became very enamored with it, opulent, and got assimilated by it. This is when Enki and Enlil were also within their fight, and Enlil dropped a nuclear bomb on where the Eye of Sahara is, wiping out that area, that oasis, and basically wrecking Atlantis. And that's where the thing with Egypt takes place. Green glass can be found even further down from the pyramid, proving that there was an atomic blast. The Terminator reference was from a dream I had where I saw this machine-looking person walking on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean in a dream sequence, and several others that were all fleshy and looked like the character from Fallout 4 that was a synth that it's all, well, he was supposed to look like a detective, but he was all messed up. Or like Arnold Schwarzenegger where his face gets ripped off and you see the eye. This is what it looked like. Or the character from Terminator Salvation that went in for a surgery, woke up, and somehow he had been transformed into a Terminator from the molecular level by a nanotech that transformed all his bones. This is essentially what ended up happening on Atlantis. And people and the whole Terminator war going against regular people, that's the Black Army I referred to. This is essentially where people where the Akashic was accessed for the idea that was the Terminator franchise. So if you guys want to see more on that, those references and how that really connects, let us know. We'd be happy to do that in GIC where the galactic history is put.
Some say that the landfill locked his hated lover in a quantum space of sorts and starved her to death. Maybe that was Isaac or Odin, or I really can't remember who said that. Which one is true? Is she dead, or is she under arrest in the void, sucking on oil slicks and weaned on back seats?
Yeah, boy, somebody really hated the witch here, so that witch I'm going to actually am inclined to agree. She is pretty gross and deserved every bit of those insults that are being thrown. Trust me, personal experience. So it is all the above, young man. Sucking on oil slicks is her specialty after all. Hee hee, wink. She watches from the void, but sucks for all to see. Hee hee, wink. That is all for now. Hee hee, wink. Crumb. He was saying read between the lines like all the rest of them like to do with these winks. A wink and a nod kind of deal. They like to accuse Valiant Thor of doing the wink and a nod thing with the Cabal, but now they do it to basically out each other. So this is essentially basically her sexual and gross exploits is what he was trying to say, if you hadn't noticed. So next.
The Iliad and Odyssey. When I read these books, it gave me the sense that there was a proto-Bible book of sorts, perhaps a lot of rhetoric putting the Olympians on their pedestal. Then again, that was the culture of the time. The gods were petty and cruel, sort of thing. How true are those books in the story and details, or are they purely works of fiction, roughly based on historical events? There were a lot of conversations amongst the gods. I must assume that these were entirely made up by the author, but would anyone like to comment upon the authenticity of these two books and how much they are accounts of history?
Yes, this was actually very, very interesting. This conversation, this goes into the Greek mythological materials, and this is something we are definitely going to be covering on Galactic Interversal Consortium, most definitely. But this is more of a like a taste of this. So, yes, Crum here to say that these books are indeed accurate within detail with one detail left out. Achilles is the son of Poseidon himself, and that he did not die by an arrow to the Achilles tendon. He did not die at all. In fact, he is here now to finish out this channel, passing it over to him now. And some like to do the arrow to the knee joke. Isaac likes to do the arrow to the knee joke, like from Skyrim with Achilles a lot. So he obviously knows him. So, hello, old friends. Achilles here to briefly state that the two books, the Iliad and the Odyssey, are accurate to within a certain degree. For one, my father, Poseidon, did indeed test Odysseus with the journey to Ithaca. But did he test him with the sirens? Also, yes. This was to see if he could handle being king of his domain the same as my father. His tactics can be cruel at times, but this was indeed to reseat a new king on the throne of the world, meaning a human king had to take the seat of power away from a demigod. Well, like me, sort of. Like me, but not me. You get it? With that, Odysseus had to learn the ways of the true world, what lay beneath the waves, as well as what was in the skies above. Like in Grimm, with Nick Burkhart looking or learning of all of the beings, good, bad, ugly, and all in between, as he would state. Odysseus needed to know these things to rule well. So, in short, the books are indeed accurate, but humans added some embellishment, hyperbole, lies, conjectures, and just plain short perspectives based upon the perspectives and beliefs at the times of Homer writing these great works. No fiction, just a slanted perspective based upon who Homer was, as well as who and what he was raised around. Nature versus nurture, after all. Wink. Be seeing you all around this corner of the sea. Wink, bye for now. Mwahaha. Wink again. Crum and Achilles. So next.
During the Battle of Troy, Poseidon joined the Argives at their ships and cheered them on in their darkest hour, possibly doing a bit of fighting himself. If true, why didn't the Argives blow up? Maybe it's not true. But in many parts of the books, the gods, usually Minerva, stood by and conversed with humans. The author didn't mention any sudden mystification, so I'm guessing it's just not true. Or it was holography, or energy of humans at the time could withstand as guardian energy.
Yeah, this was actually great. Keep poking that bear a little bit more of the whole frequency thing. By doing this, I think we're going to crack wide open a very big mystery that goes on with this. So keep going with that kind of that along that train of thought, everybody. Achilles here. It is because some used holograms while others use protection equipment such as armor, suits, jewelry, as well as drank or ate food to make them more like you humans. Temporarily speaking, of course, wink. The same went for the substance you humans refer to as ambrosia, whereas one of you became one of us for a very short period of time, unless we deemed it so to keep you that way, meaning what you would call a god. Next question, please. Achilles. Oh yeah, this is a very good spot. Like I tell you about Babylon 5 with the encounter suits. This is essentially what he was referring to. Okay, next.
Characters such as the Ajaxes,
Agamemnon,
I know it's a long one, Agamemnon, Ulysses, Polydamas, Patroclus, and many others. There were said to be large men, tall and powerful, way more fierce, valiant, strong, vitally powerful than other men. If true, what kind of genetics lineages are we seeing here around the Mediterranean Sea? What was there Titan in there? Nephilim, Neanderthal? Yes, some were also said to have distant relations to some of the gods too, but not all. Ulysses was not of any royal lineage, I think, but Minerva was very fond of him, so who knows?
Okay, this was actually pretty cool. Achilles here. Yes, they all had some other stock included within their packages. Hee hee. A little genetic engineering joke there for you. Hee hee. Or hee hee hee. There was indeed some Titan, Nephilim, and Neanderthal included, but only just enough to balance out some of the stunted DNA Zeus proclaimed needed to be there. Pussy, if you ask me, hee hee. Next question, please, wink, Achilles. Because Zeus would be his uncle, that is, Enlil. So he was basically saying his uncle was a pussy. Which, yeah, okay, I'm inclined to agree. So, next.
Was a lot of this warring and conquest of the heroes a ploy to end their lineages? The heroes were culturally pressed into fighting their equals to the death on the battlefields. In the end, humanity continued on, but the sons of the men were also less than the fathers until the heroes of old were no more and slain in their prime on the battlefield, often by coercion of certain gods who were fond of this one or that one, and encouraged them to bravely and glory by taking out the other's big names.
Okay, let's see. Okay. This is both the hedge betting of the gods and culling lineages down. The heroes were always pressed to fight their equals in order to see who was the best of the best. But in the end, virtually none survived. This goes back to Odysseus and how my father tested his mettle and mental, as the case certainly was. This bit of hedge betting forged kingdoms, felled kingdoms, as well as forged and felled alliances aplenty. Such is the map on which we all sit upon. Such is the age of Achilles, and not the age of Hercules. The armies of history roll on, and as Hercules created the sons of Sparta, my father tested the son of his brother with the Persian army. How great art thou in the face of the blood of one's people that was once created by Zeus himself? Not great at all, I'm afraid, but to the surprise of the gods themselves, Sparta as well as Greece began to form a true unity. This is exactly what we wished. The test was surpassed only by its result, and that was eventually the Dylilian League of Greece. Smile emoji. That is until Isaac fucked it up. But none of us are perfect after all. Wink. Next question, please, if you will. Wink. Achilles. One backstory. In the times of the Peloponnesian Wars, about 50 years after the 300 Spartans, there was the Dylilian League of Greece, and Isaac was one of the corrupt leaders by the name of Alcibiades. So they reference it in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and they make a kind of a parody version of him where he's almost like a hermaphroditic like character in that game. This was Isaac's role in ancient times was Alcibiades, and he was a corrupt leader that actually there was some poisoning of food that went on and all of that nonsense. Then Isaac went, yeah, we all do a lot of crap before we get into more of the more honest lifetimes, let's just say. I just try to say. But yeah, we all, a friend of mine and I laughed profusely when we found out that Alcibiades was Isaac. So that's what he meant by that. So, and they're all buddies on a soul level, like in the movie Infinite with Mark Wahlberg, where they all know each other and they all kind of have a meeting place, and I think that's kind of how these guys act towards each other. So the same thing. So next.
During the colonization and also destruction in their wake, and in parentheses they say, thanks, Jeff, we talked about the colonies of Midgard. But did they colonize other worlds of Earth too? Did they colonize Venus at the same time?
All right. Yes and no. Yes, because they did colonize them at the time of what is called, both from an earthly perspective as well as a galactic one, the Great Seeding. Whereas Venus, Earth, and Mars were all colonized, but then Odin eventually started a war with the Vanir, and voila, the Venusian colonies were eventually born. Hope this helps Achilles. What that is, it's the Vanir-Aesir War. Odin wanted to form the 9 realms. He went to war with Venus, which is Vanaheim, and eventually the DNAs got blended, and then now you have the Venusian people. That's why they look Nordic. So if you want to see more of that story, go to gic.show and look for the Venusian material that we have on there. So, next.
Over tens of millions of years, the colonists would breed, interbreed, fan out, and begin new settlements as populations increased. Probably. Did many of these dilapidated into barbarism? Possibly when Asgard fell from the sky and Atlantis and Lemuria began to take root, Midgard was already populated by ancient colonies who had long since become simple barbaric tribes. Is that statement accurate?
Yeah, okay. This was actually these have been very fascinating, the historical questions, so keep them coming. So yes, temporarily true. Then came an idea to create hominids out of some of the different races' bones. The rest of the colonists did indeed either fall into barbarism, some of your Conan tale aside from ancient Sumeria, of course, and some created vast trade cultures. This, however, began to become undone by the rise of the Neanderthal Empire, out of what you all eventually would refer to as Scandinavia. This is where my kinsman Vidar spliced Asgardian DNA with Neanderthal DNA and with some of the earlier people's DNA, and voila, you have Vikings. Ha, I hope this helps. Next question, please, if you will, good sir, wink Achilles. Now, Vidar did that on Atlantis, or on Times of Atlantis, so then you have basically the sons of Odin, or the lines of Odin, that eventually were in the same territories as Neanderthals. I just wanted to put context where he put Asgardian DNA and Neanderthal, and that's where you get Scandinavians that are more resistant to cold because they have Odin's DNA and they have the other one in there. So, and you want again more on that information, go to Jesse. So next.
So during the heydays of Lemuria and Atlantis, when technology was at its peak, what percentage of Midgard's population were Iron Age or less? Very low tech.
This was fascinating. I thought this was a fascinating question. It was a large number of people who were of little to no tech at that time outside the great cities of Atlantis and Lemuria. Well, Mu also. Then they fell. When they fell, those that were left who did not retreat and run with their tails between their legs, he often taught these younger races. But this proved to be for naught when Enlil ordered this to stop, like Zeus giving an edict, pretty much. Some listened, some did not. This is all that I know about this, or at least can relay to him for now. Anyhow, next question, Achilles. That's essentially the rise of the Nephilim, and then you have the sons of God coming into the daughters of man type story. That's where this goes right into essentially the biblical area right there. So also there was a show on years ago called Cupid, where you had Zeus give an edict that none of the gods could sleep with the daughters of humankind anymore, kind of thing, or mankind anymore. So this falls kind of into the same territory. Next.
Could the War of Atlantis and Lemuria be seen as the war between a Midgard faction and another Earthworld faction? Or were they both the same frequency, same Midgard?
This was fascinating too. They both were okay. They were both the very same frequency, at least until the Great Shattering took place on Atlantis. This rendered some into other temporal frequencies / timelines, while others stayed the same frequencies. The Great Shattering meaning bombs, lots and lots of bombs, nuclear ones, in fact. This was accurate. This is why other dimensions hate nuclear power and the subsequent explosions therefrom, because of their dimensional impacts on all of the other dimensions. This includes even sitting nuclear plants. They are seemingly doing nothing but powering your home, but in fact they are harming a multitude of dimensional layers. The introverse included in this statement. This is very soon to be rectified. Wink. Next question, please, if you will, wink Achilles. Meaning, when he did the wink on both sides, meaning there's more to see on this subject when they do the emoji thing on here. There is far more to see on this. It is basically breaking down other parts of dimensions. I've even seen gnomes and other elemental forms that look like they're these weird wet forms, and that means they passed through some nuclear reactor somewhere and became this weird corrupted version. There's also a disease passing amongst like leprechauns and other gnomes called density inversion. That's this weird density like downslide that also has to do with nuclear fusion. I believe it was a virus that came about because of this. So next.
Colonists who settled here but not Midgard here, if any, did they also decline in knowledge and tech?
No, not all of them. Well, mostly all of them kept their tech until either they could not because they were on Midgard, or kept it because they were either in Agartha in and went into the Interverse. Next question, please, Achilles. Some of these are a little short ones. So next.
Did other races such as Elvis races decline in barbarism as well? I think we can at least see this in forest people and dogmen, but what of others?
Okay, here we go. Achilles was on fire with a lot of these. So yes, some Lyrans, or what you guys call Lyrans, so did. Some didn't, or some did, some didn't. While other Fae declined barbarism. You are indeed correct about the forest people and dogmen, but some did fall into barbarism. Some were tampered with, like the ones you call face eaters, as well as the wild men of England. There are remaining Jotun and Neanderthals, of which became what people you know of as ghouls and got blended with nature, as well as some dogmen regressed into feral beasts from Antiquan DNA mishaps. This is all I know. Next question, please, Chris. Wink. What they mean by the ghouls is because ghouls were physical form Neanderthals that were created, but then the benevolent Earth Mother integrated them in. It was almost like carrion eaters. They go after dead bodies and death energy. They clean it up. They're like feral animals. If you get in between them and a dead body, they act like a pack of wolves. I cleared ghouls out periodically, but they were more like Neanderthal consciousness or spirit, so to speak. But they're incorporeal beings, and some are corporeal somewhere. And I'm going to be adding some World of Sasquatch episode material on this subject as well, where the forest people got into their kind of retarded cousins at some point. So okay, we can move on now.
What is the difference between ancient colonists going from space to Stone Age on Midgard, if true, an Earth energy thing, and the much later psionic devices used by landfill and false Orion groups to literally stunt consciousness and evolution? First implemented maybe during the Atlantean times. Both seem to have the same result.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, this was actually fascinating. The difference between these two distinct sides are very little, with the exception that one was much, much more quickly done, while the other lingers with psionic dampening to this very day. The tech used is both Orion and hijacked Asgardian tech from both the Ragnarok and the Atlantean time frames. The moon is one of the hijacked devices. Whereas Odin had it commissioned in a distant solar system to be one of many Death Star defense weapons to defend the solar system against the prophesied invaders, the Orions. Odin knew, hence created the Nine Realms. They knew for a very, very long time, began to kind of forget some of the details, and they were even influenced later on by the Orions to drop the system barriers. What happened? That's how the invasion took place. All the defenses up. This would look like a very different system if that had not dropped. And Asgard would still be around in that form instead of an asteroid belt or the speckled band, I believe it's called. A speckled necklace or bracelet, I believe. Well, more like conquered, but who's looking too closely? Meaning the Nine Realms. This weapon was then hijacked and turned on Earth by Enlil, reptilians and Orions, to control those on the Earth's surface. It and Saturn were also turned into a soul trap for the soul trade, but it since had been dismantled, or has been dismantled. No new parts for it can and will be created. No resources are available at this time or in this time like there were back then. This is why the Orions are having a bit of a rough or a tough go of it, sort of. Anyway, next question, please, Chris. Wink, Achilles. Meaning there isn't a lot of resources like they were in that day. You also saw it in Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, where Dylan Hunt brings the Andromeda, the ship, into 300 years later, past the Commonwealth collapsing, was in the event horizon of a black hole, comes out, and there's no Commonwealth anymore, and there's not really a whole lot of resources like what built the ship. And that's what was actually sought after quite a bit. That's what he was referring to as an event like that. Roddenberry had it nailed on the head, though. Next one.
A variety of videos lately have shown some very large creatures in lakes, sometimes rivers, moving close enough to the surface to create a wake or turbulence that terrifies boaters. What is making itself known recently in lakes? One of these was seriously massive, possibly up to 200 meters, and videoed from an adjacent mountaintop.
This is actually interesting. The Loch Ness Monster falls under this. People think it's a plesiosaur going through time because of the crystal deposits. But these are actually all dragons, folks. So, Burgess the Dragon to tell you that since the times of Atlantis, the remaining larger dragons have been in frequency hiding since the Dragon's Graveyard incident during the last Younger Dryas period. These very large creatures are indeed dragons, dragons all. That is all for now until Chris here knows a bit more about this point in our historical record. Wink. Next question, Chris. Burgess the Dragon. He's the one that resides in our house that looks like a fat Buddha dragon and takes care of attachments and such that I've spoken about on other programs. But yeah, also Bob the Dragon from the 2024 Disclosure Now conference, when he talked about when we found a dragon there, talked about how the elephant's graveyard story is some of the extinction events of Titan-like dragons by Enlil and others around the times of Atlantis, like the Dark Army doing all of that. So next one.
We've seen a lot of spirals in the sky, supposedly all Musk rockets, but I don't buy that. Are there portals or what, and who?
Yeah, this is actually a very interesting question. If you want to know more about this next subject I'm about to talk about, please write in. So, Isaac here to tell you that these are indeed portals from craft entering and exiting the firmament barrier. Think the Star Trek galactic barrier for the Van Allen belt as well as the Kuiper belt, with a lot of energetic friction in between. If you saw it, the firmament would look like purple fog. Only frequency-based craft are able to penetrate it. Let that sink in for a bit for all of you listening to this Q&A. Wink. Next question, please. Isaac, meaning he was inferring that any space rocket travel wasn't exactly getting out of the atmosphere. They had to be UFO level spacecraft. That's how the Nazis got to Mars, the lunar base and Ceres, because it was the ETs that helped them do it. That's why they were constantly crashing. That's why you had the Roswell incident. That was actually them in Bellcraft trying to penetrate the firmament barrier.
But to continue this right here,
yeah.
By the time that we saw the space landing that everybody remembers seeing, okay, and there's always question, we never win or whatever, I can guarantee you by that time in the deep ops, there were plenty of them already in the sky. Mm-hmm. So I think, it's always a misnomer because they're only thinking of the one incident. A traditional rocket can't make it out. But let me tell you, we were already in the skies before that. That was a human surface event to prepare people for knowledge later on that we do leave. Yeah. But again, human regular rockets at that time could not do it.
Yeah, and that's again why the Roswell incident craft shredded across the Roswell desert and farmland there, where Mac Brazel found that. That was a Martian German craft. They tested it on clones. That's where the ET bodies came from. That's why it shredded, because it got shredded by the firmament trying to get through a wormhole fragment. Hitler's technology was unstable. They eventually, through paperclip, stabilized it, and they were able to get more out into the galaxy.
Meaning we were on the moon before that event ever happened. Yeah. So I just want to try to help people clear that up.
Yeah, we were out there long before.
We were out there long before that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next one.
What tech was used to heart spike Chris at the end of the previous Q&A episode?
Yes, this where you saw where that hit me. You're probably wondering what that was. So Isaac here to state for the record that what hit his heart spiked, if you will, was a form of V2K, whereas aside from what you have been told about its capabilities can cause heart palpitations, spikes, and heart attacks, of which I am thoroughly disgusted with. They aim a thread of energy at the heart, no different than a ninja assassinating a king, politician, or just all-around intended target with a wet thread carrying a drop of deadly poison aimed for the sleeping victim's mouth. They do the deed, then leave, never to return. Angry face emoji, Next question, if you will, dipshit, wink, Isaac. Now, this is what happened to my grandfather. He had multiple heart attacks. He was intricately connected in with some of these programs, spotted aliens, did all of this through the Nebraska, bases from SAC to Offutt, all of these. And he even said, basically, don't kid yourself, we actually are aliens there. And also, when they closed the Lincoln Air Force Base, he said, yeah, it all went underground. He knew a lot of this stuff. They eventually caused his repetitious heart attacks via an earlier version of this said technology. I have too many pieces around, and I got a lot of etheric protection. All of this, that was just basically like kind of a bitch slap to me. I've experienced this before, but this was kind of Isaac basically saying never to return. Yeah, this is not acceptable behavior on their part. So we're actually at the end of this long one, folks. I know this was actually a lengthy episode. This was the length of the script, and how many questions you sent in for this now eighth in the new pantheon of Q&A scripts here. We'll get to the galactic contribution, and I do apologize for the length. I didn't account for how long some of those answers were, but keep the questions coming in, folks. So I assume it's going to be you, Isaac, since or whomever that's benevolent with no conflicting opinions. Oh, it's actually Elena this time. Oh, okay. I always assume it's Isaac because he's the one that doesn't actually shut up most of the time. So, ha 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 ha. Okay, let's see. All right. Excuse, it is actually quite odd to come into a form that has a beard. So, being female, weird. And on our world, that even the guys don't have beards, so it's kind of odd. So, we were even showing him in a dream last night, showing him without facial hair, and you suddenly being irked that he took his mustache off and everything. So, and it was a dream where his mother was going to a spot in Vegas, and Laverne and them were going to Vegas to check some things out and packing their bags and go for a vacation kind of deal in a little apartment. It was a different place than this house. And he took, for some reason, he didn't understand why he completely shaved all this off. We were basically informing him, we were saying Vegas, they were checking Vegas out, the parents were checking Vegas out, her and Laverne, and clean shaven, and then you got irked. And we were basically saying, this is the one, the people giving the message are Lanyalosians, hint. So this is essentially what we were saying. So, and that also we have been around you a couple times in the Outer Banks and such. This is what we were saying in that kind of environment. We were around you guys because of you had some mishaps with some E2King in that area of OBX or Outer Banks. There are some weird, creepy things in the area, but there's a lot of greatness in that area because there is an intersection point near your Wright Brothers Monument there in the lifeguard station there. There's a big intersection. That's why he keeps wanting to go back there. It's an energy vortex out in the ocean there. This is why there's so much history there. Everybody was guided to that spot. People tend to gravitate towards those spots when there's a lot of energy moving and a lot of energy movement. So I'll just go straight into questions.
Well, I didn't know, honestly, with the plethora of all of the questions that came off of this one, was there anything in particular that came to mind with you that you would like to contribute on, first of all, with the questions that were asked?
No, all the ancient history seems to match or be kosher, wink, hint, hint. But don't kind of going after it in a little bit. But other than that, people could send in questions about Longulos possibly, but other than that, keep on this thread of operation. I know there was a lot done today and a lot of turmoil that went on in the background prior to any of these recordings. Keep going along this thread because people will want that are hungry for knowledge will look to these, and then look to your other material and other people's material. That should possibly keep some of their other material around, hint, hint. But other than that, are there any questions for us?
In general, I think, when we talk about, again, more present day, I know there were questions again about, if you spot an ET, should you say something? Should you not say something? How are we going to breach, some of these rules that are in effect? The one thing, I'm going to be quite honest, I don't remember if it were ever answered or even ever asked. But, even with my experience where I was in a coffee shop area, went in there, was absolutely looking at an alien because I happened to be able to see through what they were putting out. To everyone else, he looked like a regular guy getting his coffee. To me, he looked like, I know you are not from here. Once he realized, of course, that I saw him, he left in a hurry, and no word was ever spoken because I kind of was just observing, couldn't believe what I was seeing with my own eyes. But I never asked the question. I did see him. I never said anything. He went back to the legislature and everything building. But what happened to him? Did he have to leave because I did see him, or did he kind of skate through it all?
He was a little column A, a little from column B. He had to leave because you saw through his disguise, kind of like in the show Resident Alien, that people could see them living in Albuquerque and everything. It's the same thing. That's why people know they're there. That's what that was telling, the Sandia base incidents and stuff like that. But yes, he had to leave because you spotted him.
Okay.
Because that's essentially it. And he's not really in that area anymore. We were actually in the Outer Banks with you. He thought he spotted somebody that looked like us. It was actually Vesa and her brother, Vosk. But it didn't dawn on him until he got home. Just like when you were in Carefree, Arizona, the two ladies that were here, that was actually us. And we made it evident by saying, oh no, our husbands are not here. We were seeing if he actually would pick up on that it was us. We weren't that far from you guys, but it didn't dawn on him until later on. That's the time delay. That's how we can get away with stuff like that. Eventually this will change, but unlike the guy that you saw, the blue guy, we are obvious, but we're not so obvious. He was only obvious because you saw through his disguise, like the two he mentions at the mall. He saw through their disguise with the two Pleiadians types that ran from him, and then communicated later on at the Starbucks, in the Barnes and Noble. The shit happens sometimes, but sometimes shit happens to the point where then we adapt and just kind of go haha and laugh it off and walk away. Some won't even run away. Some will just be like, I'll get fined, whatever. But your blue guy, he went shit and just kind of left. This will happen as time goes on. As some of the psionic dampening is turned down. This is also preventing people from seeing through the ET disguises. It's like in your They Live, where they put the glasses on and they see. The Roddy Piper got people to see the true ETs. They may look like skeletons, but whatever. That's kind of the same premise. This will start to change as time goes on. Your blue guy may even come back to see you at some point, and so was the two that he saw in Illinois that time. That it was actually it'll be quite interesting what happens in the years to come here.
So again, the point of that conversation and that question was, and the answer to it was more like, you don't need to hide this. If you're seeing them, you're seeing them. There's basically a tipping point where there's too many of them seeing too many of us, and we have to do something
The
about
rules
that.
will adapt, the laws will adapt after a while. The more you keep thinking back to them, hey, I think you're an alien, etc., etc., the more your mind and your energy sync up with that and you're seeing through disguises, they will be forced to change the rules. There's no question about that.
And the reason,
loophole-wise, it is.
yes, and the reason is because there actually is a lot living among us. I think that needs to be brought out.
Yeah.
That, with tech, with different things that they're able to kind of, if their looks too far away from our own, they may have tech or different stuff that's going to, change them enough from your perspective looking at them that they look just like one of us. Mm-hmm. But I find it interesting. The only thing I wish to ask you to comment on is, why are there so many here already? Because again, people are thinking that the event is they're finally here, where we're saying, oh, they're amongst us no matter what you want. And I'm saying on the earth, the frequency that I can see them, that regular people can see. And I'm not talking about, your world or the introverts or anything. I'm talking specifically in the frequency that we are in. Why are there so many here? What is everybody up to?
Well, for one, some live here and they've had for a long time. Some are descendant lineages like us of other races that came in. Also, you have your tall white variations as well that live around Nellis. These are all descendant lineages, except new ones come and go as well. Earth is essentially a nexus hub. It's just that they live here, but they can't reveal themselves because of the treaties. The treaties later on came in, of course, with some of your more of your 100 years disclosure narrative, but further back as well. These have been re-upped for a long time, and we all hate it. But the reason they're here is because, like, why are you here? You live here. And you just come across them every now and again. He even came across some in Prescott Valley at that courthouse. That's why after the incident with the neighbors and some of the soldiers and cops that time, what this entailed was he sat in the courtroom and saw those masked reptilians that were kind of hunched over like salamanders and had veils on their heads. They couldn't be around. They kept saying they couldn't be around human breath, meaning the toxins. Again, they're one of them that doth bitch too much, but they won't do anything about it. They're like the Lizzies of Albuquerque, New Mexico, where some even variations in them live in homes together. Again, resident alien. Some moved over to Arizona and figured, okay, we can hide better over here. But they were going through. He saw them going through the courthouse, telling people to put the masks on their face, up on the nose, and he just transmitted the middle finger back to them, which they were very shocked. But they normally would go around to people trying to get humans to not breathe in their general direction. They tend to be slight hypochondriacs, but it's also because of the chemicals. When in fact, they could just put a piece of jewelry on, they could put a suit on of some kind, or something on them like a mask or a helmet or something, and they would be fine. But they're like, why do we have to do it? The humans have to just evolve, etc., etc. And that's been going on since time immemorial with that particular race. They're brown, speckled. They almost resemble a turtle, but they are a salamander type, and they wear a veil like this, like there's some kind of the mental patient that has to go around, avoiding people's breath all the time. They're really, really, really hypochondriac type. That's who he ran into. They actually live on the Earth's surface. You think they would have adapted to human breath after a while, but they blame current toxicity for that, where people eat the food and then they breathe. But yet they won't blame the ones that actually put the toxins in the food. Some of them are really stupid that way. Other races are very kind. You run into them all the time. You just don't know. He's making reference to an old Sequest 2032 episode with Mark Hamill as an alien and another person that was his neighbor. And then eventually Mark Hamill's character gets revealed as an alien. He goes, why didn't you tell me the whole time? Why I want, and he goes, no, I'm still the same guy you knew. I just didn't show what I was. This is exactly what's happening around you. You have them everywhere. He's picking up on all the different energies that stand out, but they are literally all over. Some mask them very well. Some have a hard time masking them. He's picking up on the ones that have a hard time masking, or they have a very boisterous, loud energy, like somebody that projects it outward, and they go, whoops, and then somebody else's psionics sees their psionics, like the three that he spotted in a nearby amusement park here in Virginia Beach, and also the ones in Vegas that were being spotted as well, that he made reference on his friend Phantom Gigabytes Poltercast 3 in that. So, yeah, with that, yes, they're everywhere. They just live here, just like you do.
So it's an interesting thing, and I'm assuming we should probably do a show of its own on this, because, somewhere along history, in history's past, everyone saw each other for what they were. Then there must have been a moment in time that somehow that segregation of not acceptable to not be seen as a human as we know it to be, you must hide, but they're from here. So I find that the whole conversation wild, and probably need to explore it in its own separate show.
See, we're alien to you. Technically, yes, alien, because there's tall white spliced in and all that, and they originally, some of them settled on Lanulos as well. et cetera, but then the DNAs got blended, et cetera, a long time ago. But it is, yes, it would be weird. We're right here, but yet we'd have to run from it. Also, people from out there have to do the same. It's because of the stupid rules that have been put in place.
Sure. And so, like I said, understandable for those that are not from of this earth, really weird. And I think we need to explore when the split occurred, when it needed to start on this earth. Because again, there were times where that did not. When we talk about Lemuria, when we talk about Atlantis, they were the different races saw each other for how they were. And so somewhere along the line, a change began to happen.
A shattering took place then. Both timeline shattering and basically frequency shattering took place, where some just got placed in other frequencies. Timelines, they depicted in your Elder Scrolls as the Dragon Break, with Tiber Septim set off the Numidium. It's the same type of event. Atlantean technology and the war between Atlantis and Lemuria. This is what caused the schism.
Again, where they say the fall of the Tower of Babel and all of that.
Yes,
I understand that's all the same thing.
Yes.
But it's still kind of weird in my mind, so we'll explore it further.
It's literally the Tower of Babel story, yes.
Yes, so we'll explore that one further, because again, like probably just like me, some of you are going, yes, but that's weird because we're all on the same frequency. We should be seeing each other like we were before.
You should.
So we'll cover that on a later show. I'm going to just kind of leave that there because this has been so long. So I'm going to leave it to you with any last words you want to say before we close this off.
Let's just say a multitude of temporal variances, a multitude of genetic variances, both is and is nots, very much like in the Elder Scrolls. When the Dragon Break hit, there was both an is and is not. There was a character called Manning Marco, King of Worms, where you have to defeat him in the show or in the game, where he was a man, but yet there's a god version, just like with Tiber Septim, man version, god Talos version in the lore. You have the ises and is nots. This is really all that I can explain until you have a better comprehension of this type of quantum mechanics and quantum physics. But just know its origins is both temporal and quantum mechanics and physics. So this is all I can say on that for now. So thank you for having me on. Apologies for the length, but well, it was partially his fault, but or mostly his fault. But I will say thank you. I bid you adieu. Goodbye. Until next time. Ah, there we go. Yes, this was quite lengthy. We do apologize for that. Yeah, a good reference. Elder Scrolls lore, Dragon Break, Daggerfall. Look into that reference. So the one episode me and Ryan did on Daggerfall, a great reference. So that's on the Liftings video game Rumble channel now. As one of the first ones we did of the Elder Scrolls lore was Daggerfall. So. I don't know if you have anything else to add until we take this show out.
Let's go out.
I know you probably wanted this to end for some time now. Sorry, folks.
Hope you guys enjoyed this, but we are going to not have them this long in the future.
No, this was overly long, and the next one we'll probably just do right away, and it'll be shorter. So the next script for number 9 there. So, all right, let's see. Affirmation and blessing. To all under the sun, this, the age we live in, is full of knowledge and lies, both large, but both useful in knowing the truth of the world. Seymour, he's Fuma's brother, the Forest People. So, at this point in time, I am now closing this circle within true benevolence and no conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. So thank you, everybody. Bye-bye now.